Alright, welcome back to Shadow Dragon, Prologue 3. Last time we gathered a small group of loyal knights and escaped from Altea Castle, but we're not out of the woods yet. Literally, there's lots of woods on this map. But anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves. In that last cutscene we learned that the king is dead, long live Prince Marth, and his last words were basically telling his son that he needs to step up, become a man, and defeat the evil that his father couldn't. It's a lot to put on a young kid, but Marth seems pretty determined to step up, so let's try to keep him alive long enough to do that. Anyway, we've got a couple new units. We've got Cain. Very similar to the other Cavaliers. Yeah, I mean, I've already said what I had to say about Frey and Abel. There's nothing really new to say about Cain. There is one problem with him, though. You see his weapon ranks? Yeah, he starts with the opposite of what Frey and Abel start with. He starts with a D rank in swords and an E rank in lances. That means he can't use the javelin. He can't use that 1 to 2 range weapon. So just off the bat, that gives him less versatility and ultimately less viability than the other two units who are pretty much otherwise identical to him that he starts alongside. Now, that's not to say that he's a bad unit or unusable. It doesn't take that long to have him fight some enemies with lances and get up to D rank lances. And once he gets to that point, he's basically all set. He can use javelins just as well as them. The problem is, when you get 3 of the same type of unit with very similar growths who play the same type of role, why would you invest so much time and energy and the limited experience points in this game into getting him up to the level of viability that they already start at? You know? It's just something to think about if you're planning to play this game for efficiency. A big part of Fire Emblem is playing with who you like, though, so if you really like Cain for his little bit of personality, I guess. He does get more characterization than most characters just from that last cutscene alone. That's the last time he talks in the story, is to express his survivor's guilt after the king's death and everything. But yeah, that's more than most people get. But Cain's alright. He's a 3rd Cavalier. There's nothing wrong, like I said, nothing wrong with using him if you want to. Cavaliers are a very good class to begin with, so he's got that going for him, at least, even if he starts off a little bit weaker than the others. Now we have Jegan, this man, this absolute beast of a man. He's a paladin, which is a promoted class. You know how in Pokemon, once your Pokemon get strong enough, they can evolve into a stronger form? Yeah, promotion is basically Fire Emblem's version of evolution. A paladin is a promoted cavalier, so once all of these guys promote, they'll be paladins too. Promoted units have higher stats across the board, along with gaining new abilities. Usually that means gaining access to a new type of weapon, but in this case, because Cavaliers are the only unpromoted class that starts with 2 weapons, Paladins don't get a new one. He does have a little bit longer movement. He's got 10 movement instead of 9, and like I said before, just better stats. The problem with Jegan, right, is, well, it's a problem and not a problem at the same time. See, Jegan, even though his stats might not look significantly better than everyone else's, 9 defense means that half the enemies on this map can't even hurt him. The silver lance he starts with, which is a B rank lance that he can use, is so strong that he can absolutely obliterate everything on this map. These guys are nothing compared to him. I could send Jegan literally through this entire map, and he could probably kill everyone and be in very little risk of dying. The reason I'm not going to do that is twofold. One, he's already promoted. He only has 19 more levels to grow after this, whereas these guys have... Well, promotion happens anywhere between level 10 and level 20, depending on when you use the special item you need to use. So these guys have so many more levels to grow than Jegan does. He gets very little experience because, just like in Pokemon, if you're fighting an enemy that's considered to be much weaker than you, your experience gains are reduced. If I fight anybody, you'll see, but he gets basically 1 experience point from every fight, like killing an enemy, where these guys are getting close to 30. So he grows much slower than everyone else, and even when he does level up, you can see his growths are so trash compared to everyone else that you'll be lucky if he gets 1 stat, maybe 2. Usually he doesn't get any stats at all. So the thing about Jegan is that he's a crutch. He's a crutch for these early game chapters where your other guys are pretty weak. If they get some unlucky misses or get hit by some things they weren't supposed to get hit by, they can die pretty easily. Jegan is there to take out an enemy that absolutely needs to die on this turn, or else somebody else is in danger. Once you get past these early chapters and these guys start catching up to him, there's not going to be a lot of purpose for Jegan. He's an old guy. He can't learn new tricks very well. Anyway, let's actually get to the map. This first section is pretty clear, just wide open plains. can show off the Cavalier's great movement to their full extent here. And like Jegan said, there's a house over here. When you visit these with a character, they provide a little bit of lore. Marth's in range, so let's send him over. Oh. So that's pretty basic advice on how to play the game, just telling you watch enemy ranges, don't overextend your characters and put them in a place where they can get attacked by too many people at once. Just lure them out and take them down, just like when he was a lad. Speaking of luring people out, I'm going to send Abel over here to flank this archer before he can take any shots at us. So this is Forest. If you look at the terrain window, you can see that it provides plus 10% chance to dodge an attack. But even though Abel's movement is far enough to reach this, he can't get into this forest space, even though he looks like he should be able to with his movement. That's because different classes have difficulty getting through rough terrain. Cavaliers get screwed over by this the most. They're the best on flat terrain that doesn't slow them down at all, but as soon as they have to go through rough terrain like woods, forts, deserts, anything like that, they get slowed down to an absolute crawl. So, to get within range of this archer with the javelin, we're not going to be able to get the benefit of the forest, but that's just how it is. Abel will be fine. I guess we'll send Cain down to deal with this guy. I'm not sure if he'll kill him in one turn or not, but send everybody else down as well. And we have our objective, seize the fort across the river. Pretty basic stuff. So yeah, like I was saying about Jegan, what you should be using him for, ideally in the... Oh, a 95% miss? Come on, Frey. What you should be using him for, ideally in these early stages, is to, well, bait enemies out, kind of like I was doing with Frey, but usually baiting ones out that are a little bit more dangerous than just these basic soldiers. So he takes a hit from them, usually takes very little to no damage, hits them back for a little bit of damage, and then weakens them just enough for one of your characters who might not be able to take them in a one-on-one fight to actually finish them off. That's kind of a moot point in this chapter because my guys can hold their own. Even Cain, who's level 1 and completely untrained, can take out these soldiers with no problem. And using Jegan is absolute overkill. Look at that. With his Silver Lance, he one-shots them and doubles them, even though he one-shots them, and takes 0 damage from them. With his Iron Sword, he also kills them with 1 round. So even with the absolute weakest weapon that Jegan can use, he demolishes these guys, which is ironically a bad thing because it means he can't do his job well at all. Anyway, let's keep pushing forward. I don't know if I'm going to be using Cain. Usually there's this thing with the Cavalier. So the Cavalier duo, one is red, one is green. That's kind of an archetype that appears throughout most of the games. I find when I use both of them, one of them just turns out to be bad. I know it's because of luck, I know growths are based off percentage chances, the game isn't designed to make one turn out bad, but that's just always how it happens for me. And in Shadow Dragon, it's usually Abel who turns out good. Maybe based on the fact that you get him a chapter earlier, he has a little bit more room to grow, and, you know, D-rank lances. But we'll see what happens. I don't even know what to do with Jegan. He can visit houses, I guess. Oh my god, this is... So yeah, I wonder if that guy knew he was talking to Jegan. Pretty funny. But yeah, basically what he was saying there, same thing I was saying. Use Jegan for what he's most useful for, which is weakening things for other people to kill and get experience. HP and speed. Not too bad. Speed is better than getting like 1 skill or whatever he got last chapter. God. But yeah, if you just use Jegan and power through these first few chapters with just him, you're going to be in a real problem because everyone else is going to be left behind in levels, and Jegan isn't going to have... Even though Jegan will probably level up a couple times from hogging all the experience, he's not going to be able to keep up with the enemies. They're going to get stronger faster than he is. Normal units who have actually decent growths can usually keep up, but he can't. He's probably going to get benched sooner rather than later. But like I said, he's very useful if you use him for what he's actually supposed to be used for. I said use a lot in that last sentence. Yes, javelins and hand axes are the best weapons in the game. So over here are forts. Kind of like the thrones from the last chapters. They give some defense, they give a higher chance to avoid, and they heal 20% of your health at the beginning of each turn. They're useful, but we have vulneraries, so we don't need them. Oh yeah, forgot to mention, Jegan doesn't start with this vulnerary if you're not playing in normal mode. So if you don't see him in the prologue chapters that we're doing, because in hard mode you don't get to play the prologues, he doesn't start with the vulnerary. Let's see, how can we bait these guys out? This guy can reach all the way over here, so we'll just lure the soldier. Will he kill with the iron sword? 11... Yeah, definitely. Soldiers are trash. We won't see soldiers past the prologue because the game understands how garbage they are. They're literally just free experience for you to train up the people you want to train up, which for me is mostly Abel and Marth, and maybe Cain. Okay, so this guy's kind of dangerous. He has a hand axe. It's the axe version of a javelin, 1 to 2 range. Inaccurate, but pretty strong. So what I'm going to do is just throw Jegan here. You can see how he'll barely take any damage at all. Keep him out of range, but I just want to lure this guy with the axe. Houses also give a very small amount of evasion, just a 5% higher chance to avoid, but it's better than nothing, right? Yes, breakable weapons are a thing in all these games, except for when they aren't. How far can this guy reach? Yeah. So basically you want to move people up as far as they can go without being in range of something you don't want them to have to fight. And you can see with all these mounted units, Marth is actually falling behind. He hasn't gotten a chance to fight anything. That's why I say Cavaliers are a very strong class. Even if their bases in their stats are just average across the board, the additional movement is a bigger boon than it seems to be. Getting where you need to go is good. Getting left behind is bad. It's just as simple as that. That's battlefield tactics for you. Yeah, so he was not going to be able to hit. I wanted to test something out, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. I can show it with Jegan. So Jegan has 8 speed, right? This guy has 7 speed. The threshold for doubling is 4 points, so he shouldn't be able to double, right? And yet he can. That's because of a thing called weight. So if we look at this guy's hand axe, you can see in the right-hand corner of the right screen, there's a stat called weight attached to his hand axe. Weight is an attempt to balance out stronger weapons like javelins, hand axes, and then the higher tier weapons like silver lances, like the one Jegan has. Basically, the heavier a weapon is, you need to be strong enough to wield it or it's going to slow you down. So if a weapon's weight exceeds your strength, the strength of the user, the difference is taken out of your speed when you're in combat. It's not shown in your stats because, well, I don't know why it's not shown in your stats. Some games have an attack speed stat, and that's really useful. I kind of wish more games did, but this one doesn't. So you can see the hand axe has a weight of 8, and so to use it without a speed penalty, the fighter would also need to have 8 strength, but this fighter only has 5 strength, so the difference of 3 is taken out of his speed, which cuts his speed down to 4, and it means that Jegan can double him just barely with a speed of 8. So be sure to watch the weight of the weapons that you use, so you don't end up getting doubled like this guy when you really shouldn't. It's okay to use weapons that are too heavy for you sometimes, just as long as you know what you're getting yourself into by using them. Let's see if Marth can take him out. No, he can't. Cain, help a man out, right? Finding a balance between the units you use is very important. You don't want them to start like Cain and be, well, subpar compared to the other units they join alongside, because then there's just really no reason to use them. But you also don't want them to be like Jegan, where they have no room to grow and are only useful for a very short part of the game. Did I mess up here? Am I in a bad situation? No. Nah, he'll be fine. Okay. But yeah, ideally, the ideal unit is one who is strong enough to hold their own against the enemies in the levels they start with, so that they can gain experience faster and level up and don't just have to be babied and fed free kills, because that takes time and takes the effort of your other units. but you also don't want them to have such a low potential for growth like Jegan that they're not going to be that useful in the long run. So, I don't know if you caught it, but Marth said in that last cutscene that there's mages. They don't need to get as close to do you harm, so you have to be careful. Mages are the first magic wielders, obviously. They use tomes, which are magic books. Tomes are nasty for two reasons. The first is that they run off the magic stat instead of the strength stat, so 5 might plus 3 magic from the mage is 8 attack. And they're reduced not by defense, but by resistance. Let's check out our units. 0 resistance, 0 resistance, 0 resistance, 0 resistance. And everybody has a 0% resistance growth, except Marth. His is 2%. 2%. Jegan has 6 resistance, though, for being a paladin, and also just being Jegan. Mages are really nasty in this first game especially, because nobody has resistance, and resistance growths are so low. I don't know why they did that. I feel like they could have given people a little bit of resistance just to balance it out, but like I said before, this is a very faithful remake of the first game, and magic and resistance were kind of weird. I'm not going to get into it right now, but basically magic was supposed to be very dangerous back then, and it still is in this game because of nobody having resistance. So we'll just lure him in with Jegan so that nobody else, because with 0 resistance you're going to be taking the full 8 damage, and that's quite a lot. So Jegan's only going to be taking 2 because of his 6 resistance, so lure him in and then have everybody else gang up on him. The defensive stats of magic users are usually hot garbage, so once you can actually get close enough and aren't in danger of getting killed by them, they're not too tough to take out. Look, Marth just continuing to lag behind everybody. Get a horse, bud, get a horse. So you can see here, this guy's going to do 8 damage, which is going to leave Abel at 1 HP. It's a pretty scary place to be, but a unit fights just as well at 1 health as they do at full health. So as long as you don't cross the line between being alive and being dead, there's really no danger in doing this, because I know that no matter what happens, I'll be able to take out all the threats on this turn. Plus, Abel needs to, you know, no pain, no gain. Gotta get that experience somehow. Please get a good level. Okay, you know what? I'm happy with that. Got some speed, got some defense. His luck growth is trash, so I'm pretty glad he actually got some luck. Luck is generally not a very important stat, but having really low luck can be super scary, because that gives you a chance of getting criticaled, which is not good. Sure, who should I give this to? I'll give it to Cain. Once again, just, yeah, get your lance rank up, bud. It's okay, just keep fighting. I know you're 1 scratch away from being killed. Gotta keep fighting. Let's see if the Cavalier curse comes true. Yeah, 1 strength. You know what? I'm not gonna complain about strength. It's extra damage. That's the end of this chapter. Let's watch this last cutscene. Why do we need this flashback of something that happened 10 minutes ago? I really like that cutscene. I think it fits very well with what happened at the beginning of this prologue. Marth just learned that his dad died. Then at the end of this, Malladus tells him that his sister is probably going to die too from leaving herself behind to allow him to escape. So he's upset. He wants to go back and rescue the only family he still has in this world. But part of being a hero and part of being the chosen one is having that responsibility to not do things that are going to get yourself killed. People are going to have to sacrifice themselves for you because you're straight up more important than them. It's kind of how nobility works in general, I guess. The life of a noble, a life of a ruling person is more important than just the life of a commoner. At least that's what conventional wisdom would lead you to believe. But, yep. Sorry if I rambled a little bit more this chapter than I did in the previous ones. This is the first time where I didn't have everything scripted out. I just basically had bullet points for myself. So, yeah, not really running off a script, just off of my own ideas and all the rambling that comes with that. So, without further ado, I'll stop it right here, and join me next time for the final prologue chapter, and then we'll actually get into the real game. Fun stuff. See you next time.